Okay, so we have the G protein coupled receptor, and then so we have a signaling molecule attaches to the receptor and it activates it, and then the G protein attaches to the activated receptor, and then the GDP is converted into GTP, and then the activated protein attaches to the inactive enzyme and activates it. The activated enzyme then releases a cellular response. GTP is converted back to GDP, and then a phosphate is released. Okay, so you have two receptor tyrosine kinase proteins, and then two signaling molecules attach to them, and then they combine to make a dimer. And then it becomes activated, and the 6 ATP turn into 6 ADP, and then the phosphates from that attach to the tyrosine. Inactive relay proteins attach to the phosphates, and then they become active, and then they release a cellular response. So some symptoms of Parkinson's disease include the neurons in your brain procedure an important brain chemical called dopamine, but when the cells are triggered to apoptosis, they die or become impaired and produce less dopamine. Parkinson's disease requires a medical diagnosis. Early symptoms start often when tremors in one hand. Other symptoms include stiffness, loss of balance, and slow movements. Some forms of treatment include most medications, such as dopamine promoters, antidepressants, anti-tremor medication, and cognition-enhancing medication. There are also some form of physical exercise that is advised by neurologists. In the normal state, release of the neurotransmitter dopamine in the presynaptic neuron results in a signaling of the postsynaptic neuron through D1 and D2 type dopamine receptors. But in Parkinson's disease, from either a genetic mutation or exposure to certain environmental instances, the loss of function in the neurons causes mitochondrial dysfunction. The mitochondrial impairment leads to protein degradation pathways. Here you can see in the normal neuron cells that there is a normal amount of dopamine receptors being emitted from the axon to the membrane receptors of the synapses. But in someone who has Parkinson's disease, the amount of dopamine molecules is decreased and impaired.
That means that there are less dopamine receptors to go into the cell membrane of the synapses. This leads to movement disorder of Parkinson's disease.